I maybe only lead 4 to 5 people at a time on a good day. For us to think that in our pride that we can lead all these different people, and it's going to come to a head at some point, and we'll be the lid to our own growth.
Hey, what's going on, friends? Welcome back to another edition of Chasing Elephants. And I'm continuing my YPS leadership edition as we're talking to some incredible leaders, thought leaders, practitioners who's doing some incredible things around the country for the kingdom. And so I'm excited for this week's episode and this conversation because I'm telling you, for all of you youth pastors, next gen pastors, lead pastors even, this conversation is going to be super, super important for you. So you want to definitely dive in and, check out my brother who is here. This is my twin, my bald-headed brother and twin.
Come on.
None other than the Brian Preston. What's up, brother, man? What's going on, man? Glad to have you here from Tulsa.
Come on, Tulsa,
Oklahoma.
Yeah, thanks for having me in, man.
Man, listen, it is an honor. It is honor. And so before we get started and you talk about your church and what you do, we always like to kind of have some fun, getting to know you first, deal. So we're going to talk shop here and everything, but let's just have a little fun. And I want to ask a couple questions. We typically ask this of our guests. All right. So first question, we want to know, like growing up, what was your favorite toy?
Oh, gosh. Oh, man. Favorite toy in general?
In general, yes.
Well, so I'll give you 2 answers.
Okay.
So all-time favorite toy, softy side of me. All right. All-time favorite toy is this Precious Moments puppy.
Oh.
Come on, everybody. That my grandmother got me the day I was born. Still have it to this day.
Are you serious?
My son has it in his room, but
that is stupid. Okay, I can't say anything about that. That's okay,
But I would say, like, on the complete other side, if I had to say one thing that, like, I don't know, really kind of defines me, when I first got an N64. And I'm a video game guy, and so like when I first got an N64, it changed the game.
It did.
It changed the game. So like whether it was Mario, Bond, Mario Karts, man, there's so many great games. And to this day, again, still have it.
You still have?
I'm a little bit of a hoarder. We're unlocking some things here.
Yes.
We might have some counseling.
Yeah. But you know what, that video, bro, I wonder if, like, not that you're going to, but I'm a capitalist at heart, but if you put that on, online, you try to sell that, I bet, that's vintage, bro.
Maybe.
Times get tight.
I got something to fall back on.
Okay, all right, so great favorite toy. All right, so if you had like one last meal, go on to meet Jesus, and this is one last meal, what would it be?
Easy. So, let me preface it by saying I'm a meat guy, so you give me a ribeye or a tomahawk steak, I'm probably in.
Yeah.
But if I'm gonna have to pick one thing before I go out, it's my mom's meatloaf. The best meatloaf recipe. Even if you're not a meatloaf person, I promise you will be. The best meatloaf recipe.
That is, listen,
down.
I'm down for some meatloaf. All right, so here's the question, because I love meatloaf. Does she put like onions and peppers in it?
So sweet peppers, yes.
Okay, sweet peppers, yes.
I wouldn't even pretend to tell you what I know is in there. It's just a lot of love.
There's
so much good stuff.
Good.
Yeah, and then you got all the sides, like the mashed potatoes with the green beans that have probably been soaking in bacon all day.
Yeah.
The roll. Oh, come on.
Oh, listen, I'm ready.
Spiritual before you go out.
Listen, let's go. We can call it quits here right now. Go get some. So that's awesome. All right, cool. Last one. Best advice that you've received. I mean, I know you probably received a lot of great advice over the years of your ministry and just in leadership, but best advice you received from either a mentor or just another leader.
Yeah. For me, the thing that probably I fall back to every time would be take Jesus seriously. Don't take yourself seriously at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
But man, I want to prioritize Christ in all things. So take Jesus seriously. Don't take myself seriously at all.
Love that. Love that. So good. Love that. Now you are at an incredible church. Tell us where you're from.
I love my church, man. I am so currently living in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we are part of Battlecreek Church. Pastor Alex and Maya. It's a gift, man.
Yeah, man. Listen, Pastor Alex is just an incredible leader, not just here in the States, but around the world. And he has been such a dear friend to our organization. And we are big Pastor Alex fans.
Drawn initially because he's such an incredible communicator and teacher of God's word, staying because of just, man, how incredible of a leader he is, how he loves his people around him. It's so good.
Yeah. And family, tell us family.
Yeah. So wife, been married for, let's see, make sure I get it right, almost 14 years.
That's good.
Yeah, come on. Yeah. And her name is Jen. She's phenomenal.
Yeah.
She's a school counselor by trade, and now gets a chance to train a lot of them. And then we have 2 kids, both adopted. So we didn't, they're not biological, but we made twins because they're only a month apart. So Selah, who just turned 10, Zeke, who turned 10 in February. So.
Nice, awesome.
Yeah.
And listen, let me tell you, we discovered this earlier. We were just talking about this earlier before the podcast. Your marriage dynamic really reveals that there is truly a God, a unifying God. Because your
not
wife,
just because she put up with me, but go ahead.
but because she also knows Jesus well. You know, she knows Jesus well. She is a UGA fan.
She is. She's a Georgia fan.
She is a Georgia fan, and you are
from Elberton, Georgia.
Come on. Okay. Fun fact. So this is so random, by the way. So it had to be 90.
Come on.
3-ish. I'm dating myself.
Be with him, Lord.
Yeah. 92, 93. State championship. My high school, we were co-champions with Elberton County.
Okay.
We did not know, my coach, who should have known this, did not know that if you don't score at halftime, after overtime, then it's a draw. And we didn't know that. So he played, we had the ball, and he played it conservative because he thought we had another overtime period. So we were, we are co-champions. Yeah, nobody wanted that state.
No.
You know, and it's like, who wants a co-champion ring and stuff?
So did you play in the Granite Bowl?
No.
Okay.
No.
That's like the infamous thing that everybody talks about.
We did. I'm trying to think, man. Oh my God, this is so long ago, but I just remember the co-champion stuff. And so, so your wife, she is a UGA fan. Praise Jesus. God bless you. And you are, let's go ahead and just get it on out.
Roll Tide, baby.
Yeah. And the fact that you guys have such a healthy and blessed marriage, you know, just shows that, you know, we serve a sovereign God.
We learn to serve each other well. Now, fortunately, we've both got to experience a lot of winning, so that helps.
Fair.
That helps. Fair. Yeah, if it was only one side or the other, then it might sting a little bit worse.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. Man, well, bro, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, man.
We're going to talk about, Brian, today, something that I think, as I was saying earlier, so many leaders, you know, can really kind of connect with. And that's, you know, how to, you know, recruit, retain, train, like volunteers. It's a topic of volunteers as a whole, because we believe, especially in a ministry setting, if you want a healthy ministry, you better have a great assimilation process with your volunteers and just a way to mobilize them. So not just recruiting, but you got to mobilize them in a way to really kind of retain them. And then how do you keep it going? You guys are doing a phenomenal job at your church, really kind of having just this healthy process. And obviously I know there's probably some behind the curtain war wounds and stuff, but from what we've experienced with what you guys do, y'all do things with such excellence, and with just so well when it comes to this topic. And so I thought it'd be great. Let's bring in the expert.
I love it.
You know, and let's talk.
I'm not an expert, but I love this topic.
Well, I think, don't say it so short. I think, again, because of the way that y'all are doing it. And I think that's so important. So let's start from a broad perspective, which is kind of like, okay, we know this Captain Obvious question, but why is an intentional volunteer process so important?
Well, I think it goes back, we were even talking about this before, where there's so many different things that youth pastors are wanting to know, whether it's practical as like getting the weeds of how to plan an event or how to, you know, strategize your follow-up process or different things like that. When you look at student ministry, there's probably a lot of questions that they have every single time. The thing that I kept finding that we needed to go back to is, have we recruited and do we have the right volunteers? And have we empowered them well? And I think at the end of the day, as ministers of the gospel, whether you are full-time, part-time, bivocational, even in a volunteer role, that God has entrusted you to lead a ministry. I think it all goes back to Ephesians talks about that our role is to equip the saints to do the work of the ministry. And I know we've heard it, and I know it resonates at times, but you have to live it. And it has to be something that, from a ministry standpoint, once you've experienced what it looks like to really empower volunteers well, man, you don't want to do anything different. I promise you, I do not want to do anything different. So even if I go to another church one day, which I hope not, even if I go to another church one day, man, that would be one of the questions that I ask is like, what does the volunteer culture look like? So that I know where do we need to get to? Because that is such a vital piece to helping you not just perform and do ministry well, but also for their discipleship. If we're called to lead people, the adults in the room have got to be a part of that process.
And I know we're going to get to some practical nuts and bolts and stuff, but I want to dispel a few myths. And, you know, so I'm asking somewhat of a rhetorical question because I kind of know the answer is, you know, but some of the myths is that, you know, the most effective volunteers are young leaders who are close to the age of the students, or you know, college age students, or college age leaders, you know, to minister to the students. But what would you say to that myth of, you know, people think, man, if you're in student ministry and next gen ministry, you need to have the vast majority needs to be these young college age leaders.
Well, one, I know it's a myth because even if you just look at our Broken Arrow campus, which is our largest campus by number, but even over the last several years, probably been one of the most fruitful, and just in seeing not just sheer volume and numbers, but just to see the stories that are coming out. And that one campus struggles to get young adults to come serve. So I know it's a myth because we've seen great work even through all of that, but young adults are fantastic. They're bringing a lot of energy and a lot of excitement, and so don't discount it. Go get them. But man, to see the fruitfulness and the faithfulness that leads to the fruitfulness of a tenured volunteer who's been serving faithfully for so long, who's raised up their own kids, understand what it looks like to raise a godly kid in their world, and then to see them come alongside. Like, I cannot begin to tell you the amount of like Kim and Brett Browns in our ministries that are the lifeblood. Like, they've raised 4 or 5 kids of their own, and they're still continuing to pour back in. Or like a Tiff Jones, who is one of the greatest volunteers I've ever met in my life, and who literally will train youth pastors now because she's been doing it for so long. So good. But there's not an expiration date. Like, she's not graduated from the gospel, so she continues to pour back in. And so, man, that is a huge myth.
And the reason why I wanted to, you know, kind of start with the why, you know, is because, you know, again, we've been around, you and I both, we've been at conferences, we've trained, we've consulted, and you know, we hear that a lot, or you think that from both sides. You'll have some older leaders who feel like, oh man, you know, I don't have anything to give, or I can't relate, or, you know, and then you have the young leaders who like, or some of the leaders who say, man, I need some more young leaders who have the energy and can go. And, you know,
so, quick story. And when I was in Cleveland, we had a lady named Vicki Patterson, and every year it was that. For 7 years I was there. Every year she was like, I think I'm done. I think my time is up. You know, I don't really relate. And every year we've had the same conversation. What's really cool now is I had a conversation with her about a year and a half ago. And I said, Vicki, look at the fruit of the time that you invested, and even in those later years that she was pouring in, there's probably, I would guess, 20 to 25 of the girls that were in our ministry that are currently serving at that church in that ministry. And so just again pointing to that of going, hey, God's using you and your discipleship of them. Look what it's proving, or, you know, showing now.
Yeah, man, so good. I love that. So all right, so let's get down in the weeds a little bit. And so let's talk about, I guess, your approach. All right. So approach/strategy. When you are stepping back and from a large perspective, you know, what is kind of like the strategy for you guys and you as a leader when it comes to, let's start with the recruitment. You know, is that a fair place to start?
Yeah, I think so. One, it's got to be who you're going to go get. So it's got to be the recruitment. For us, a phrase that we commonly use around Battlecreek is ABR. Always be recruiting.
Always be recruiting. Yeah,
so we made a hard shift a few years ago that we said, like, we're done with recruiting out of desperation. So if you need somebody, that's cool.
Yeah.
But you should always be recruiting. But we're not going to recruit out of desperation. We're going to recruit out of desire. So what is the position of need? What are you praying and asking God for in that? And I'm just telling you, when you begin with a very specific God, begin praying specifically for different roles that you need within your ministry.
Yeah,
I promise you, He'll provide.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, part of that recruiting is always be recruiting. So every conversation in the hallway lobby, being able to have a conversation. Hey, man, it's so good to meet you. So thankful for you. Are you serving anywhere in our church? Man, awesome. I love our kids area. But a lot of times that's when you see the shift of like, oh, you're not serving anywhere. Oh, let me tell you a little bit about student ministry. And so I tell our team all the time, like, especially for student pastors, like, I believe we have the most important job in the church. We may not have the best because it's hard. But I guarantee you, I feel like I have the most important job in the church. And if the statistics are true, 77% of those that give their life to Jesus before the age of 18, then man, we have a huge mission. To capitalize on this time period. And that's the vision that we got to sell. You know, when we're in the hallway with a volunteer, having those conversations, helping them see the need. And then once we have had those conversations and getting people in, one of the things that I think a lot of youth pastors make a lot of mistakes in is, again, it kind of comes out of desperation. And I'll just go ahead and say it. You're always going to need community group leaders. Like, you're always going to need small group leaders. So like for you to always be trying to fill that spot, instead flip it to go as a part of my onboarding and my interview process of a volunteer. And please, dear Lord, please interview your people. Make sure you got good people coming.
We were talking about that. It's like,
And so when they're in, or when you interview them, ask a question. Man, what are you passionate about? Like, what do you want to do? Like, what fills your bucket? When you get up in the morning, what do you feel like God's wired you to do better than most other people? And so finding out what they're passionate about and then figuring out, hey, how can that help us in our ministry? Because that's the thing that's going to keep them tethered when things get tough, or when that kid looks at them awkwardly or doesn't respond the right way, or, you know, whatever. And so helping them to find a position of passion, that's when we also begin to discover too, there's a lot of things that we didn't even know we needed. So like having a Jessie Dewey come in and interviewing her, finding out she's a photographer, and it's not just a job by trade, but it's what she's passionate about, what she loves to do. Hey, actually, we would love for you to come in every Sunday and take pictures of our student ministry and let's highlight it on social media or whatever. And so, or we had somebody come in and her desire was accounting, financial stuff. And she loves spreadsheets. And I'm like, all right, let's figure it out. And so one of our team members had connected with her and walked her through and said, hey, what about you come in on Sunday mornings and code all of our receipts for us?
Wow.
So these volunteers come in on Sunday, but she's found a place of fulfillment, something she's good at and loves to do. And now our team doesn't have to code their receipts. Which student pastors hate.
Right.
And so just, again, finding what they're good at and helping as a part of that recruitment process is vital. And then I think the next step with that is equipping them, empowering them. In other words, you've got to, like, we do this thing in student ministry where we love to craft everything behind the scenes and then come out with our people and go, look at all these good things that we've done. Hey, come join us. When that's not how it was made. You know what I mean? And so, like, learning to peel back the curtain. And one of the phrases that we use all the time is, don't just invite them to the table, invite them into the kitchen. Like, let them see how it's made. Let them see what tools you use. Let them see all the different seasonings that you, let them see the hard work that goes in, and invite them to be a part of it. So they add input, they add value. They're now a part of what it took to get to that thing that you were doing. And now they're also empowered to go do it. It was their idea. They're now a part of it.
Because it's one thing to sit there and watch the ingredients being made. It's nothing to get your hands, you're mixing in the bowl with them, you know.
And that meat.
You're not
egg and meat. That meatloaf.
Meatloaf. Right. Because of the fact that what you're inadvertently creating is a sense of ownership. You know, and I love what you were saying earlier, Brian, about, you know, finding the desire, because desire, in my humble opinion, equals stick-to-itiveness. Because we always use a phrase talk about putting aces in their places.
Yep.
You want to put people where they're the most passionate, and the most gifted.
Yep.
Because now, man, now people are like, man, I'm thriving. I'm not just surviving in ministry, but I'm thriving.
And it's not an excuse not to grow where I'm weak.
Sure.
But the thing, when crap hits the fan and when you had a really tough day and you still got to go do this thing, it's the thing that keeps you tethered going, man, I feel passionate to do this.
Right.
That's the thing that's ultimately going to, because when you do it, then you feel fulfillment.
Exactly. And then the beauty of that, now is, man, I do feel fulfilled and I understand the ebbs and flows of it because it's a part of my gifting, and so I love that it's not like the photographer, it's like, okay, hey, here it is. Like, we're going to take this gift that God has given you and we're going to leverage it for the.
And we could have forced her into a small group.
Right.
But for how long? That's the thing
that is that you
putting her in a place that she's going to be fulfilled, that she wants to be in for a long time.
Exactly. Because I believe that what we do a lot of times is we have great people in bad places. And because of that, then now you have either quote unquote burnout or people just not really committed. You're always.
It's part of closing the back door that people underestimate is again putting them where they're fulfilled. Because again, you can do anything for so long. But after 6 months or after a year, man, if they don't love what they're doing, they're not going to be there. They're going to check out. And so part of that's again helping you close the back door so that your recruitment actually means something. Otherwise, it's just a revolving door. And then going back to the empowering piece, it's essentially the same thing that businesses do when they give stock options to employees to help them become invested. You're allowing them to be a part of it. So that it's theirs, not yours. And ultimately, again, for most youth pastors, they weren't raised in the church that they're in.
Right.
They came in. They're probably only going to be there for X amount of time. And those people are still going to be there.
Right.
And so do they have the ownership? Like case in point, even when I got to the Battlecreek, our Broken Arrow campus was the largest. Even at that time, there was no staff. They had all left to go plant the Jinx campus. Well, it stayed afloat for 3 months. Now, it wasn't great when I came, but at the same time, there was months of time of leadership because the volunteers already felt like they had some ownership in it. And then from there, we built out. This is where it gets kind of real granular and in the weeds. Is one of the things that we found to be a secret sauce recipe, which I'll give it out to anybody, is we build an organizational chart. So an organizational structure, just like you would for an organization. We build an organizational chart for everything that we do.
I love it.
So for every event that we do, for every Sunday, weekday, for every Wednesday, like we're building an organizational flow chart of going, all right, who's ultimately the lead? Who are the people underneath them that are covering these major areas? So even for student camp, we plan a camp for 1,200 people that's run by volunteers.
I love it.
Now we have a team of student pastors, but I don't want them caught in the weeds doing the job when we get on the ground. I want them to be able to be relational and shepherd their people. But the volunteers are coming in and they're leading these different areas. And so like Brandon Jackson, who's our student director, oversees, he runs 2 different companies. Like the man's not short on things to do, but he still loves camp. And he comes in and he brings his business expertise into this thing. And he's the one coaching our youth pastors to coach these volunteers.
That's crazy.
And so building this flow chart or an organizational structure, helping them to know who's in charge, who's over what areas, who's the coaches that, and all you're doing is building in layers of leadership. So just like if you want to grow your student ministry, you got to bring in layers of leadership within your organization because ultimately my capacity, this is where the rubber met the road, by the way. Like for me, like I finally just got tired of doing everything. And truthfully, like I'm princess hands. I don't want to necessarily have to do everything. I'll just be honest. Stacking chairs is something I'll do, but I don't want to do.
Princess hands. I like that. That's awesome.
So I just finally somebody else got to be helping me do this stuff. But it came to a moment, and it's that kind of that Jethro moment at Exodus 19 where he looks at me like, you're going to kill yourself. And I think a lot of youth pastors probably are in that spot where you're tired, you're burnt out, exhausted, and you're at that place. I pray that you can make this hard switch to get to a point where you're now building in layers of leadership. Because our capacity, what I meant by that is our capacity is only so much. I maybe only lead 4 to 5 people at a time on a good day.
Yeah.
And so Jesus had 12, and one of those didn't even like him. So for us to think that we can lead,
What
what you like him? You like him? For us to think that in our pride that we can lead all these different people, man, it's going to come to a head at some point, and we'll be the lid to our own growth.
Yeah.
And I'm not just talking growth numerically, although that's part of it. If we want to grow numerically, we got to put in layers of leadership so that we have an adult for every 4 to 5 kids, even every 3 to 4 kids.
Yeah.
Because it's intentional.
Yeah.
And specific. But because of that, it's not just numeric, it's also spiritual.
Yeah.
Where now, instead of one leader trying to lead a group of 12 boys and only going to be able to get so far, now we've got one leader with 4 boys who are able to have way more intentional conversation. They're able to be more known, more seen. And I think that's the magic that we got to get to, empowering volunteers. And so, again, I'll give you our structure if you want it, but like literally build a structure for everything.
I love that. I love the power of volunteers. It reminds me of this story when I was a student pastor in Atlanta. And I would always, for our small group leaders, you know, say, hey, you're the youth pastor of your small group. Like you got to steward that, pastor that. And so I'll never forget, I was in California doing an event. And I got a voicemail that one of our students was in a car accident, real bad car accident. So, oh my gosh. So I fly through I was already on my way to fly through the night and doing a red eye, get back to Atlanta, fly to the night, land, go straight to the hospital. So I get to the hospital and, you know, at that time, Emory, you know, they would make you say, hey, you know, you gotta, if you're not family or a pastor, you can't see him. So I came in, I was like, hey, my name's Jeff Wiles. I'm, you know, so-and-so's youth pastor. And they looked at me, the nurse looked at me kind of funny and it's like, no, you're not. And I was like, yes. So I even pulled out my business card, like, ma'am, I am youth pastor. So now she's looking flushed, like, oh my gosh. And I said, what's wrong? She said, his youth pastor's already been here. I said, no, ma'am, I've been flying through the night. I couldn't have been, I just got here. And she says, no. And she looked at her notes, she said, there was a Juan Thomas here. And it hit me. This is a small group leader.
Yeah, dude.
And so he introduced himself as, and you know, was right there. So in the moment, while I'm flying 4 hours through the night, I didn't get there for another, you know, so total 6, because about 2 hours and stuff for me to get to him and everything. Man, Juan had already been there. He'd been with the family, prayed with the young man, and just loved on him. And I sat there and I smiled and I was like, got it, you're right. And I you know, so I came back later with Juan and I was like, hey man, you know, I made a joke. I was like, hey, could you just tell me you're a volunteer?
This is the youth pastor.
Yeah. And so, but he took that point, I say that, and I love that. There's so many examples of that when I was in student ministry of that empowerment, and he owned it just like so many others.
We had 2 girls just 2 months ago pass away in a car accident for our Midtown campus. And the small group leaders, now, you know, our youth pastor was also around and available throughout this process, but the 2 small group leaders, they literally walked through everything. They went to their house the next day. They walked through the funeral situation with them.
Man.
And this family didn't know Jesus. And so they're walking alongside of this whole family and helping them the entire time to the point that family then shows up at church the next Sunday. And I'm like, all of that because volunteers were so invested in those girls. And they felt ownership as a part of being able to lead them every week.
And it goes to what you say, and that's why I love what you talk about, just building the structure out. One, because you got to write the vision, make it plain. So people need to see, okay, here's the direction. Here is, you know, says as an organizational leadership guy, you know, I love flow chart.
I love your whiteboard stuff.
And so you
get on the whiteboard.
And so they know, you know, where they fit in the organization, but that empowerment, right? And I think that's so important there. And so with that, I want to, you know, take maybe a little side pivot to that. Do you have a, and I hope I asked this properly, so correct me if I don't. Do you have a universal like training volunteer course or class, and then one that's like the first tier, like, hey, non-negotiables for us as a volunteer, and then one that is, you know, ministry specific. For example, these are non-negotiable for a volunteer, but if you're going to be a photographer, you're going to be leading a photographer ministry, or you're a small group ministry, obviously I would imagine that you funnel that down different. So how do you do that from the equipping standpoint?
Well, we do set pretty clear expectations up front, because one of the things that we found even just a few years ago was we live in a culture where I think it's like the numbers are like people are going to attend church 1.5 times a month. But we set pretty clear expectations up front. Hey, if you're going to serve in student ministry, it's going to be every week. And if you want to go do once every other week, man, there's some other great ministers in our church. I'm sure that we'd love to have you. But we just said, no, here we believe. And part of it's because, again, in our culture today, the dynamic of a consistent family looks way different.
Absolutely.
And so most kids aren't getting a lot of consistency with the adults in their life. And so just making that plain for our volunteers coming in, it's like, hey, like if that's you, that's fine. But we want people that are going to be here every week. So when we come in, we set pretty clear expectations up front. And that's one of them. But there's other things that we'll tell them and communicate with them. There is, from my standpoint, man, my job is every new youth pastor comes in, I'm going to train them on all these things that we do with our volunteers. And then it's their responsibility to do that at their campus. And so they'll do that training and thing. So it's not necessarily, it is universal, but it's more personal.
And that's so good. And the reason why I ask that is because some would say, or ask, I should say, some of our leaders will ask, man, love the organization, but at what point do you break it down or get more, into the minute details of what the expectation for?
And we do that. And to your point, when you talked about ministry side, there is the clear, hey, here's the expectations as a student volunteer, and then under each umbrella of where they might serve. And if we create a position, we'll create new ones. And again, we will create new roles. But under each umbrella, we'll have, hey, here's what this role looks like. Almost like a job description, but then like giving them the expectations of like, here's how this is going to function. And most of those have been written by volunteers.
I love that. All right. So here's the $1 million question. Like I would love for us to do a session one day on, how to fire volunteers. Okay.
Oh man. You absolutely can fire volunteers.
So you have, and that's why, we talk about, you have the organizational chart. So we know the structure. You have the expectations, train it, equip them. How do you handle volunteer discipline? Like air quotes.
I mean, so I think from a 10,000 foot view, you absolutely can fire a volunteer. And I think one of the things that you've got to remember as a student pastor, as a student leader within your ministry, you are still the primary shepherd. And in other words, you're the gatekeeper. And so who's coming in and out of your ministry, like the one thing, like we literally delegate out everything. Except for one thing that I tell our student pastors that they cannot delegate out, and that's the interview. So literally even our entire onboarding process is run by volunteers. They're the ones that connect with them, get them in place, shadow them, do all the things. But the one piece I'm like, you cannot delegate out is the interview. That they have to be the one to connect with them. And man, listen to that voice inside of you. That's like, hey, just because they pass the background check, because everything checks out. If you got a little check in your spirit, listen to the check. And so just being conscientious of who's coming in. But if you already have somebody within your ministry, I think one, sitting down with them, being able to have the face-to-face, again, conflict's not fun, but communication is the key. And so being able to sit down and communicate with them, hey, here's our expectations, here's where you're at, how we want you to be here. So in other words, can you get here or can't you? And so in a loving way, in a shepherding way, helping them to see, is this their place or is it not? And a lot of times they'll be like, oh man, thank you so much for bringing my attention. That's a great point, yada yada. Sometimes it's a very clear, man, and sometimes even out of bitterness, like if that's how you feel,
right,
and that's okay. And so, but I think the key too is like, even when that happens, I still feel a great deal of ownership in the discipleship process. And so helping make sure that even if it's not here, what's their next step? And so walking with them through that next season, I think is important. And case in point, you're going to have leaders within your ministry. Maybe they didn't necessarily do anything wrong, but you see the burn coming. And I had a leader one time in the church in Tennessee that I looked at, and we were walking together. I knew he had some marital issues that he was walking through, and I finally just looked at him and I said, hey man, you're giving way more time here to these teenagers than you are at home.
Yeah.
And man, I would be doing you a disservice if I continue to let you go down this road. So I'm going to ask you to take a break. I said, I'm not telling you can't come back.
Yeah.
You're a fantastic leader.
Yeah.
But I need you to take a break, and I need you to focus on that. And then I was able to walk with him once a month over the course of the next 6 months to help him reprioritize some of those things.
Yeah.
And I think I just saw a post the other day that said they've been married 39 years or something like that. So it's like just seeing that, I was like, man, thank you, God, for allowing me to be a part of that small blip in the radar.
Yeah.
But I think we've just got to prioritize the shepherding aspect. And that's the kind of the final piece. You got the recruiting, the empowering, and the energizing.
Yeah.
And part of that energizing is care.
Yeah.
Man, they'll run through a wall for you if they know that you care for them.
Yeah.
And I tell our team all the time, like, I care more about you than the job you can do for me.
That's good.
But I can't just say it.
Yeah.
I've got to show it.
Yep.
And I want them to do the same with their volunteers and helping them feel seen.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take much.
Mm-hmm.
But when they're invested, it's when they can get to those conversations that are a little harder. But it's that quick hit phone call. That's what I call it. A quick hit phone call of like, while I'm walking from one meeting to the next, calling a guy named Ben Deacon, and I'll say, hey Ben, man, how's it going? How's your job going? Oh man, that's awesome. Hey, what's the biggest thing I'll be praying for you today?
Yeah.
All right, let's pray right now.
Yeah.
Pray for him. Boom. 3 minutes, 5 minutes, done. But it's a quick way for me to reprioritize him.
Yeah.
Show him, hey, we love you. We see you. And then when the hard conversations come, it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
I've got equity.
That relational equity. I love that. And then, you know, I love the way you walk through that, because, you know, it's like what John Maxwell says. It says, we teach what we know, but we reproduce who we are. Right. And so it's kind of like a trickle down effect. So because you talked about that, kind of, you know, stewarding that, living that in front of your pastors, just other student pastors and leaders, that it kind of trickles down, you know, because as leaders, we got to remember, we can't take people place we've never been ourselves. And we can't have the do as I say, not as I do leadership posture.
And the reality is everything that I'm doing, somebody else model for me.
Right. Exactly. And so that shepherding, that care is important. And then I think, you know, the last question I would love to ask is, okay, so as you're always recruiting, and do you have like a bullpen of like you stacking volunteers here? And so you kind of, you know, farm out, like you got like a farm system, or like, how do you keep everything kind of going fresh to minimize? We know there's going to be seasons where you may have some rushes or some gaps. Yeah. But how are you trying to actively minimize the season, the time frame of seasons of gaps?
So student ministry, I feel like most who have been in it a while will know there's natural attrition. So whether it's somebody sick a Sunday or they'll fall off eventually, hopefully not. But you know, it's just, you see the natural flow of attrition that happens over the course of a school year. Yeah. And so knowing that, one of the things that I just said early on is like, I want to recruit 130% of what I need. Yeah. So kind of stacking the deck a little bit, but it also became one of our greatest discipleship tools. Yeah. So we made a determination, we're going to recruit to 130% of what we need. Okay. And mainly because, again, we know there's natural attrition. We know there's going to be off weeks where somebody's not there. Yeah. And so we're always ready and we're always prepared for that. The biggest thing with that, or one of the ways that we utilize, because you're like, all right, what are we going to do with all these people? One, again, creating positions, not just, again, based on what we need, but what are they gifted at? Yeah. And then the second is part of our small group culture and the way that we multiply groups and grow groups. Yeah. Is there's 3 leaders in every group. So moving beyond the 2 to 12 or the 2 to 10, and now we've had 3. And so what it became was a multiplication tool. So when that group grew to 12, we said, hey, now it's time to multiply into 2 different groups. Now we've got a leader who's already been with them. I can go with this group. And it's already built in. Now we just got to go find one other person. I love it. And so that helps tremendously in not just knowing, you know, the positions of need, but thinking about, again, not just what's in front of you, but what's down the field. Of, you know, how are we going to continue to grow this thing? How are we going to put people in position to help multiply these groups, you know, all that kind of stuff. And so having relational equity goes over so much better when you're trying to multiply a group of 10th grade girls that don't want to split up. Right.
Yeah. That's so good. And then just real quick, just, you know, as we get ready to kind of put a close to the conversation here, So obviously you guys are just phenomenal church, multiple campuses, large ministry. How are some of those things that you talked about transferable to maybe a medium-sized or small-sized
Yeah.
church who may not have the amount of people resources at
Yeah.
their disposal that you guys can have?
Well, I would say everything is scalable to what we talked about today. Case in point, we have a very large campuses, and we also have very small campuses.
Okay, good.
And so even looking at maybe one of our smaller campuses that has 40-ish students,
Yeah.
on a good day, and knowing that we're still applying these same principles to that context,
Yeah.
just like, so even if you're, I have a conversation with a friend of mine who's a student pastor in Indiana, and he's got about 20 kids. And even just having conversations with him over time, when it was first started, it was him and his wife.
Yeah.
And, just talking about what it would look like to find other people who are care about students, who are gifted, to come alongside of them. And now, like, they are grown to about 40, and they've got about 15 leaders in their group. So again, it's all scalable to your ministry and your context now.
Yeah.
You just got to get on the whiteboard and figure out, okay, where am I at?
Yeah.
What do we need right now?
Yeah.
And then what are the areas that I'm dreaming about?
Yeah.
And I'm asking God for
Yeah.
to help me to get down the field.
That's so good, man. Brian, this is fantastic, bro. Thank you so much. How can people follow you and connect with you? Because I'm sure there may be some who say, man, and this is awesome, but here's where I live. To your point, I want to really kind of go a little bit deeper, making it scalable. How can people follow you on social media or even contact you?
Well, and any of the resources that we have, I'll give it to you. So I want to help youth pastors to be able to get this stuff right, because it's going to save you so much. You can follow me on social media, Brian K. Preston. Pretty much any outlet is Brian K. Preston. And then my email is bpreston@battlecreekchurch.com. So
Well, bro, man, thank you so much. That's so fun. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, we are so blessed at Student Leadership University and also YPS to have people and leaders like Brian who come and, one, share their expertise, but then two, freely share their resources. And I hope, you will take him up on that, because, this is a platform we want to continue to resource and help. And so, man, thank you so much for tuning in. As always, you can follow us at SLU Lead. That's at SLU Lead. Follow me at I am Jeff Wallace. Until next time, always be intentional about making every day your best day. God bless you. Peace.